challenges to government and leadership across the spectrum in South Africa. High levels of dissatisfaction, a sense of marginalization in South Africa that cuts across most of the divides in the country. And we see quite serious reactions from society. A lot of violence, a lot of violent engagement. We see a politics playing out in South Africa that is, in a sense, yes, we have seen it before, but the level of intense engagement that we see at this stage is probably a first since the 1994 very important election in terms of the democratization process in South Africa. The end result of this is divisive policy, divisive politics, divisive engagement in terms of policy, and the use of these divisions to mobilize society. Now, that's all well in terms of running an election campaign and getting people mobilized to vote. But there's a reality after the election, and that is you have to calm people down again. You have to engage in the real world again. And that is where I think one of the biggest challenges coming out of this specific local government election is going to emanate. What we cannot forget in the South African context is that, yes, it's a local government election, but it is heavily influenced by national politics and what is playing out in terms of the national contestation around leadership, around policy, around expectations, around resources, and on all the other issues that influence politics in South Africa. A very important next issue in the 2016 local government election is the question around a free and fair election. In other words, a proper democratic election. And there are a number of specific challenges that influence this election more than in the recent past. The first one is the increase in electoral violence. The level of violence, the intensity of the violence we see in this election is definitely more and probably going to be more difficult to handle than in previous elections. And we see different types of violence playing out in this election campaign. Intra-party violence, inter-party violence, even personal violence. There are indications that some of the incidents of violence are at a very personal level, literally to the point of two individuals facing up to each other. What some call the basis for political assassinations already. We've seen 7 councillors or potential councillors being murdered in the run-up to the election so far. The next challenge in terms of violence will focus on the role of the security forces. And there are serious challenges. I want to emphasize this is a very difficult issue. The South African Police Service is under huge pressure to deal with the challenges, the scope of violence and possible violence playing out. And then the added pressure of expectations. We've already seen, for instance, the EFF saying that the SAPS is not playing by the rules. It's allowing free rein to the ANC while not protecting members of the EFF during the campaign process. Other parties will and have made similar claims. So very difficult for those responsible to keep the peace, to make sure that the process plays out in a fair, transparent manner, to actually deliver on that requirement. Electoral administration is another very important challenge. We've become used to in South Africa to elections that basically run very smoothly. The administration of elections has been, in global standards, totally above board and more than acceptable. But in this election, there are new challenges. A challenge in terms of the integrity of the voters' roll, the court cases against the IEC in terms of ensuring that the voters' roll is legal, is transparent and is accessible, can be checked against all the interests that participate. Also the way in which the IEC conducts itself, the members of the IEC in terms of delivering, taking decisions on the spot, where there are serious challenges in terms of this election. So there are issues, and unfortunately the IEC made some serious mistakes in recent by-elections, and they have to prove that they have managed this and they can actually rise above this challenge and deliver another properly free and fair election in South Africa. Last issue I want to raise in this context is basically what is called a level playing field in this election. And that goes to the engagement of other role players. A very contentious issue at this stage, the South African Broadcasting Corporation, the SABC. The decisions that have been taken in terms of editorial policy, specific decisions to show, not to show certain events, to give access, not to give access, critical opinions. I mean, that's been all over the media. That is a very important issue in that if this is not something as a public broadcaster that is open to everyone, that creates an equal or a sense of an equal playing field, it leaves the election and the outcome of this election open to be challenged. So there are serious long-term consequences to what is playing out at the level of, for instance, the SABC. And then the other issues, government being in governance, that's a general political problem all over the world. You always have challenges. How do you conduct yourself? You have to keep on governing, you have to keep on delivering, but you are going to be pointed out saying, but you are favoring yourself, you are favoring your candidates. So it makes for a very difficult period. It makes for a very challenging environment in which to fulfill your obligations and ensure that there is a level playing field in terms of the election itself. In conclusion, long-term challenges coming out of this local government election. We have to, as South Africans, seriously consider or reconsider our engagement with our Constitution, the values that that Constitution provides. We have to look at leadership across the spectrum of government and role players. We have to reconsider probably quite a lot of our policy actions and policy choices, and then pay serious attention and more attention to politics and violence. We cannot just say this is an episode in the run-up to the election. My fear is that we are institutionalizing violence as part of what we call democratic politics, and that is a no-no. We cannot sit back and allow that to happen. We have to address this issue. We have to keep on working on our democratic consolidation. Our democracy was a hard one. It's not going to remain intact by itself. People have to make it their business and engage to deliver on that promise. If not, it is something that we will look back and say, it was a hard fought battle, but in the end, we've lost a lot of what we fought for. And that is not acceptable. This will impact on our role globally, regionally, as much as it impacts on our domestic politics. Thank you.